Hi, I'm Hamish Shaw, General Manager of ThirdEye. Risk leaders today are operating in an ever-changing environment. Not only are they responsible for managing risk and compliance, but also for driving business performance. As part of this series, we're meeting with a number of leaders from leading financial institutions to understand how they're adapting and to share learnings and insights with our community. Today, I'm thrilled to welcome Vivian Valbuena, who's the General Manager of Risk from Fisher Funds. Vivian, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Vivian, in my experience, the career pathway for leaders in this space is very non-linear. And thus, to kick us off, would you mind sharing with us a little bit about your history and journey to where you are now and what motivates you about what you do?
Absolutely. So I've been in risk for about 25 years and have had the opportunity to work all around the world. So I've worked in the US, Europe, Asia, Australia, and New Zealand. And I chose risk partially because it could give me the opportunity to do that. I love travel and diversity of culture. And also because risk is a career that you can take pretty much anywhere. It's stable. And also that risk is something that is constantly changing. And so you're always learning, you're always facing new challenges, and I really enjoy that.
That's amazing. And Fisher Funds is obviously one of New Zealand's preeminent wealth managers and asset managers. Would you mind sharing a little bit about what you're doing at the moment at Fisher Funds and what your strategy is over the next couple of years?
Sure. So Fisher Funds has over 500,000 customers here in New Zealand. We've been around for more than 25 years. And one of our key strategic goals is always actually delivering good customer outcomes. It's a huge focus for us, and it's something that we look at every single day to figure out how we can be constantly improving.
Amazing. You spoke about the customer there, and one of the things that we often hear is from financial crime professionals is a real drive for and a focus on the impact that they have around preventing financial crime or managing risk. Would you mind sharing with us a story or an anecdote about how you and your team have been able to have an impact on the customer and kind of why that's been such a big motivator for you?
Yes. So as I mentioned, I've been in risk for quite a while and have actually 1,000 stories. But to go ahead and just give you two different examples that are quite different from each other. There was one time where we were able to identify a potential domestic terrorist. So we notified the financial intelligence unit accordingly, and also other financial services to be aware. So while that had nothing to do with money specifically, it was, I think, for me, quite a moment in time that I really recall where I thought that there was significant impact. A different example was actually at a time when I was in Australia. We were looking at all of the different G20 countries' regulatory requirements. So if you can think of 20 different countries all trying to do the same thing, but every country doing it in a different way, it was quite convoluted. And one of the things that came up was a need to meet U.S. requirements that would cause building new technological infrastructure in the U.S. branches. I stayed up late for some of the U.S. 1 a.m. phone calls and discovered that, in fact, the large U.S. companies were actually going to take that ruling to court and stopped my company from investing over $1 million into building something that they didn't need to build.
Wow. It's always amazing to hear from people like yourself around the breadth of what they do in their roles. Like sometimes you think, and ignorantly, oh yes, we're doing the financial crime aspect, but actually you and your role, you're doing so much more, both in terms of preventing crime, managing risk, enabling the business, and it's incredible to hear those stories.
Yeah, thanks.
We spoke at the start a little bit about how the environment at the moment is changing, and I think certainly from my perspective as a technology provider, sometimes it can feel like the earth's moving under us a little bit at the moment. You know, there's rising fraud, regulatory changes, obviously a big shift in the technology landscape with the adoption of AI. Mm-hmm. In terms of the macro landscape, are there particular risks or changes that you're seeing which is impacting Fisher Funds and you and your role?
Absolutely. So, and I would say not just at Fisher, but as at a national level. So certainly there's just been this exponential spike in fraud and attempted fraud, which is constantly evolving, whether it be deep fake videos, scams, cyber. And so as a large company here within New Zealand, we have a very active fraud management policy to ensure that our customers are protected. So just to kind of give you a bit of an example there, in 2024, 1 in every 3 New Zealanders actually were a fraud victim in the year. And 66% of New Zealanders face attempted fraud in some shape or fashion every month. And that's what's recorded. So I certainly see that as a big change and a big risk right now. The other is actually around what KiwiSaver, in that as someone of my age, I have gone through about 25 years, as I said, years of experience in putting money away from work. And now that I'm looking ahead to what I'll need, I can see that it's really important to hold on to those things, especially with raising, with higher health costs.
Yes.
So for me, that's also a concern because there's quite a large aging demographic here in New Zealand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, those are quite scary statistics in terms of a third of people being victims of fraud in the last year, 66% potential being attacked each month, I think you said. It's kind of, I don't think the average person would realise that, which is kind of scary.
Yeah, well, and that's reported. So there are so many that are unreported. So I think you and I were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
That I know a couple of people who have gone ahead and paid tolls that it turned out that they didn't have to pay. And because it's such a small amount, nobody goes ahead and reports that. But if you think about the thousands of people that do, it's quite a good payday for the fraudster.
Absolutely. So if we look at that landscape and everything changing, how is your team and yourself as a leader adapting to that environment to ensure that it's not just about ticking boxes from a risk perspective, but you are enabling the business, enabling your customers to be successful?
So there are a number of different ways. I think, first of all, the really important thing is that risk is about risk appetite. So it's about knowing how much risk you can take on and how much not to accept. In terms of our customer goals and helping our customers deliver the best outcomes, that's key. How much risk are they willing to take on? How much risk are they willing not to take on or should? Which actually circles back a little bit to what I was saying earlier around the KiwiSaver.
Yes.
So right now there's a lot of fear and not just fear, but actual financial hardship. However, if you're going ahead and withdrawing money now out of your KiwiSaver, what does that mean for you at a later date? Yes. So you really have to be thinking about these things. And what that means is communication and engagement. So don't just make these decisions in silo, but work with the people that can help you make sure that you're managing what you need to manage at the right pace and at the right time.
Yes. And when you talk about pace and enabling the business, one of the things I've heard a quote recently was around that the biggest risk is taking no risk at all from a business perspective. And in terms of you enabling the business, enabling innovation within Fisher Funds or within your role, is that something you think about regularly, and how do you approach that?
So yes, think about it all the time.
Yes.
And one example that I can share is that, like everybody else, I know I hate filling out form after form after form and then getting asked for the same information again a year later.
You and me both. Yeah.
So we've undertaken some work to simplify a customer due diligence process so that it's easier for our customers to go ahead and onboard with us while ensuring that we're still meeting all the regulatory requirements that we need to.
Yeah, amazing. And then in terms of maybe a little bit more about you and your role, because I'd imagine to your point, you've been in this industry 25 years, you would have seen a lot of change. And you must be, I would imagine, consistently having to adapt. And I guess my question to you is at the moment, like, how do you approach that? And maybe in particular, over the last couple of years, how have you thought about your growth as a leader, and how are you approaching ensuring that you stay up to date in terms of how you lead in this area?
So a couple of different things. So one of the things is that I do think New Zealand is fortunate in where the country geographically sits in the world, because what it means is that oftentimes we get the benefit about identifying emerging trends by seeing what's happening overseas, because it happens overseas first,
Yes.
typically. So if we're horizon scanning and looking to see what's happening in the US and Europe, Australia, we can actually identify not only emerging trends, but see the mistakes that those countries have made. Because usually there's a bit of about a 1 to 2 year lag before it hits New Zealand. And that allows us to go ahead and position ourselves with our best foot forward. So that's part of it. Another big component is active listening. So customer expectations change, regulatory expectations change, geopolitics changes. So the macro environment's always changing, and as a result, people's needs, while fundamentally may remain the same, there are nuances and changes to it, particularly in channels and how to meet those needs. So obviously with changes in technology, the customer need may remain the same, but how we meet that may be at a faster pace, provide notifications of when things need to be done, milestones, et cetera. So part of actively listening to what needs to be done and what people are looking for with time. And then finally, I would say that personally, working at a company that I know genuinely cares about its customers, that just speaks to culture, and I find that to be incredibly powerful.
It's interesting listening to you talk about that, because I think whether you're a risk leader or a technology leader or a leader in any other industry, I think those principles and learnings that you've just shared apply across the board. You know, listening to your customer, understanding what's happening in the landscape and how you adapt, growth mindset. So I think it's fantastic learnings, not just for risk leaders, but for others who might be listening to this as well. So thank you. Obviously, at Jade, we partner really closely with a number of businesses and enterprises in terms of on the technology side. I'm really keen to understand from you, like, what does great partnership look like? Whether that's working with a technology provider like Jade or other partners that you might coordinate and collaborate with. What does a great partnership look like to enable you in your role and enable Fisher Funds?
I really like that question, because you're using the word partner as opposed to a third party or a service or a vendor. And I think part of partnership is, first of all, there's a level of trust, both in the ability to perform to a high quality standard, as well as the ability to challenge each other, engage, let you know this is what we need, this is what our customers need, you be able to deliver that and have that kind of ongoing communication. That's really important. And I think that whether it be a third party, it's also important to remember that at the end of the day, even if we are outsourcing a particular function, the accountability is ours. So I think it's important for us to be a great partner to make sure that we're being very clear around accountabilities and desired outcomes. It's not all on the other. It is a mutual communication.
Fantastic. And like, that's such a great point around it being a mutual relationship, mutually beneficial, and it's really about how you build a trusting relationship so you can both deliver the objectives you need, I guess.
Yes,
yeah,
exactly.
Fantastic. And maybe a kind of final one around the technology side. So for you in your role and at Fisher, how are you thinking about technology? Are you getting what you need out of the current technology? Obviously, there's a lot moving at the moment, and how do you think about adapting in the current environment?
Well, I assume that you're probably talking about AI, and there are considerable opportunities that can be seen in AI. But I think it's also really important to make sure that AI is approached from both an understanding of the opportunity and an understanding of the risks. So what we are doing is we're using AI to go ahead and improve internal processes and efficiencies. And what that means is that the more that we're able to go ahead and simplify things or simplify processes, that means more time we can spend with our customers instead of kind of the manual back office stuff. It's very important, though, I think, for good governance around AI, so that every step of that AI journey, there is that understanding and value-weighted conversation as to, okay, it can provide this opportunity, but at what potential risk, and are we willing to accept that?
Fantastic. That makes a lot of sense. Vivian, I feel like there's been some fantastic learnings through this discussion. But to wrap up, if you were to summarize a couple of key pieces of advice for leaders, and particularly emerging leaders in this space, are there any key snippets or learnings that you would share or advice you would give to those people?
Yes, thanks for asking that. So first of all, I'm a bit biased, but I am on the board of Risk New Zealand, which is a industry organization to go ahead and give risk professionals the ability to network together, ask each other questions, learn from each other, which I think is really important both for leaders and also for junior people who are starting out in their career. So there's less reliance on just going online and Googling to see what you're supposed to do. Much better to engage. And then I would say, particularly from a leadership perspective, a lot of what is needed is going back to what we talked about earlier around listening, making sure that you're listening to your team, making sure you're listening to the business, making sure you're listening to your customers, as well as making sure that you're aware of what is going on in the world, not just your little pocket of the world.
Fantastic. That's amazing advice, and I feel like a really good place to wrap up. Vivian, thank you very much for joining us today. We really appreciate it. I know a lot of people in our community are going to get some fantastic learnings out of this. So thank you.
Thank you. I enjoyed being here.
Likewise. Thank you.